Hi all, how are you all doing today? Welcome back again to my YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, I'll be sharing with you guys how I made this beautiful jacket. It has a shawl collar and it's also a kimono. If you see what you're interested in learning, keep on watching and let's get started. Now guys, for this tutorial, I'll be making use of 3 yards of Ankara prints. I'll also be making use of 1 yard of satin fabric. This is doll face bridal satin. I'm going to keep it aside, and then this is my 3 yards of Ankara prints. Now 3 yards is going to be enough for you even if you're on a bigger size. Okay, so guys, I'm going to fold my fabric into 2, and to fold I'm going to be using the biggest part of my measurement, which is my hip circumference. So my hip is 44 inches. I divided by 4 and then folded my fabric with that. Plus, I'll be adding ease allowance and sewing allowance. So I added extra 5 inches to this. Okay. Now, first of all, I went ahead to mark out my starting points, which is going to be my shoulder point. Now, I'm trying to show you how I folded this, which I've already explained to you guys. Now from the starting point, which is the shoulder line, I'm going to place my tape vertically and mark down to the bust points. I'm going to leave my tape right there and mark down to the waistline, and then mark down to the hip as well, and then to the length of the gown. Now I'm going to be making use of length 38 inches, but because I needed to turn my fabric with some allowance, I marked down 39 inches, which is extra 1 inch. So I'm going to draw my lines across like this, and after that I would move over to the shoulder line. Now I'm going to divide my shoulder width into 2. So my shoulder is 15 divided by 2. I'm going to insert 7.5 inches, but then I need half an inch for sewing allowance. So I went ahead to mark down 8 inches. From this shoulder point, I went down by 1 inch, and then from the 1 inch shoulder slope, I went down by 8 inches for my chest point. Now I'm going to move over to the chest line and then mark my shoulder again so that I'll be able to connect my armhole depth properly well. Now after that, I'll move over to the shoulder line and mark down my neck width and my neck depth. Okay, now lest I forgot, this is the back we are drafting out. So first of all, you have to draft out the back. So my back depth is 1 inch for the neck and the width is 3.5 inches, and I connected it into the shoulder slope. After that, I move down to the chest line and I'm going to divide my bust circumference by 4, mark it down, and then I would divide my armhole depth into 2, mark out the middle and connect my armhole. Now you can see I'm using my armhole curve to connect my armhole, and then after that I'll simply add up my ease allowance on the chest line, 1 inch, and then add sewing allowance of 1 inch. Now after this, I would simply repeat the same thing on the bust point line. So I'll divide my bust circumference by 4, mark it out, and add 2 inches for my ease and sewing allowance. I'll go down to the waistline, divide my waist circumference by 4, mark it down, and add 2 inches for my ease allowance and sewing allowance. I'll move down to the hip point, divide my hip circumference by 4, input that and add 2 inches, and then whatever I have on the hip line, I'm going to take it down to the hem. Now after this, I'm going to go ahead and use my ruler to connect all the points together. Now after connecting the points, I'm going to move over to the shoulder line again, and then we add up the shoulder stitching allowance of half an inch. So as you can see, I'm trying to mark half an inch, and then after that I'm going to connect it together, and then it is now time for us to cut out what we just drafted out. So we are just going to go ahead and cut it out. Now guys, we are done cutting out the back and this is what it looks like. We are going to move over to cut out the front. I've placed my fabric on fold. From the top of my fabric, I would mark down to 5 inches. And then from the center fold of my fabric, I'll go in by 6 inches. So as you can see, we have a baseline of vertical axis and horizontal axis, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and use my ruler to make this line visible enough for you guys to see. Now guys, after marking out this line, I'm going to bring in the back piece and then I'll place it in, making sure that the center fold of the back is touching the vertical line I've marked out on the front piece, and then the shoulder of the back is also aligning with the horizontal line I've marked on the front piece. I hope you guys understand. So now after that, I'm going to connect my lines properly well, and then I'm also going to mark out the shoulder slope. I'm going to connect all the important lines, which are the bust points, the waistline, the hip line, and then the length. Now, if you notice, the length of the front fabric is slightly longer than the back, so I went ahead to trim it out. And you guys, next thing is for us to cut out exactly what I have on the back piece to get the front shape. Now that I'm done cutting it out, I'm going to move over to the shoulder line so I can indicate the shoulder slope on the front and also indicate the neck width on the front piece. So after that, I'm going to remove the back piece now and then use my ruler to connect these points together. Now after this, I'm going to go ahead and connect the points on the front fabric, okay, so that we won't get ourselves confused by the time we start working on it. Now guys, next thing is for me to determine the neckline of the front. So for the front neck depth, I'm going to use 3 inches and then connect it into the neck width. Now after this, I'm going to put my tape on the shoulder line and then take it down to 19 inches. Now this 19 inches is going to serve as my breaking point. So wherever you want your breaking point to stop, go ahead and put your tape on the shoulder line and take it down to that point. If you want it longer than this, go down to 20 inches to 23 inches. Now after that, I'm going to put my tape on the neck depth, and starting from there, I'm going to mark out the button allowance, okay? So for the button allowance, I'm making use of 2 inches. You can make use of 1 inch. It depends on how wide you want your button allowance to look, okay? And this will determine how wide you want your shawl collar to also look. Now after this, I'm going to make the breaking point to be visible so that you guys can see it. And also after that, I'm going to connect the button allowance into the neck depth. Now after this, I'm going to bring in the back piece and then I'm going to measure the neckline of the back. Now after measuring the neckline of my back, what I have there was 4.25 inches. Now I'm going to place it on the shoulder line just like this and take it up to 4.25 inches. So guys, I believe by now you can clearly see why we came down by 5 inches before placing the shoulder line of the front. And then after that, I'm going to go out from that line by half an inch and then connect this slantly. You can see the way I connected it. Now after that, it is now time for us to determine how wide we want the shawl collar to look. So for mine, I made use of 3.5 inches. So guys, you can actually make use of 4 inches, 5 inches. The least you can use is 2.5 inches, okay, if you don't want it too wide. So I'm going to connect the line and then use my curve ruler to create the style that I want the shawl collar to look. Now it is time for you to be creative, okay? So whatever style you want for this, go ahead and create it right there. Like I said, this is the actual time for you to be creative. So the type of color that you want is actually what you should get or what you should design right there. Okay. So if you notice, I was struggling to get the shape of the color that I need. This was very challenging. So I'm going to connect it to the breaking points. So what I did was to actually connect it to the waistline. Okay. And then curved it out just like this to the breaking points. So you can see what I did right there. Like I said, so whatever shape that you want for yours, go ahead and apply that. Okay. So after that, just 1.5 inches before the waistline, I also went ahead to create like this curvy effects, this triangular effect right there. Okay. So I was just trying to be creative, and that is all. So guys, after this now, I'm going to like try to shape this a little. Like I feel like what I wanted, I wasn't having it. So I was just trying to create the shape of the color that I need. And after that, I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. Now to cut out, I made sure that I added half an inch all around this, as you can see. So just follow what I'm doing, you're going to understand. I don't need to explain much, just take a look at what I am doing. So around the collar, I went ahead to input half an inch for my sewing allowance. Okay, so guys, you can see what I have right here. So I'm going to keep cutting out. I'm just trying to shape it a little more. You can see what I'm doing. So whatever style you want to create right here, go ahead and do that. So for mine, this is the shape that I chose. So guys, you can see after that we have the front and the back. Okay, so now it is time for us to cut out the lining. Now whatever it is I have on this actual piece, I'm going to cut it out on the lining. But for the front piece of the lining, I'm going to make use of the bridal satin. Okay, so I'm just going to explain it one after the other. Now for the front of the lining, I'm going to use bridal satin, and for the back, I'm going to use my cotton lining. So I'm gonna ahead to cut it out, and you guys, this is what I have. You can see for the front part, I made use of bridal satin. I'm still repeating it. Okay, and for the back, I made use of a cotton lining. So now guys, here is the back. And next thing I want to do now is go ahead and bring my fusible interface. Now the fusible interface, I'm going to glue it on the bridal satin, which is the lining, and also some parts to the actual fabric. But for the actual fabric, I went ahead to put it around the collar part. Okay, and I'm not going to take this fusible interface to the down part, like to the hem. I'm going to just leave it to about 2 inches below the waistline. Okay, so you guys, you can see what I have right there. I am done fusing it into the bridal satin and the actual piece. So this is what we have. Okay, so this is for my fronts, and to the back I didn't put anything there, just the lining. I hope you guys understand. Now guys, after this, it is time for us to now go sew this. Okay, so I'm going to bring in the back piece. So now to join this, I'm going to join this one after the other. So I'm going to join the actual pieces together. So I'm going to take the side of the actual piece and then join it to the back. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to stitch the sides. I'm not going to join the shoulder yet. I'm going to stitch up the two front parts to the back. Okay, so after stitching it, I'm going to repeat the same thing for the lining. Now I am done stitching the actual piece, and this is it. Okay, now I repeated the same thing for the lining. So I'm going to bring in the lining to show you guys as well. Remember, stitch up the sides, do not join the shoulders. Okay, now this is what I have for the lining, and what is there on the front of the lining is my bridal satin. Do not forget, doll face bridal satin. Now again, this is what you want to do. Bring in the actual fabric again, and then you're going to bring the two front parts, okay, just like this. And I'm going to move over to my sewing machine and then join the collars of the two front parts. Can you see? So I'm going to join it with 1/2 inch and repeat the same thing for the lining. So I'm going to go stitch. Now after stitching this is what we have. Okay, so guys, now here is a little bit tricky and you just have to pay good attention. Now guys, remember, after joining the collar, we have a middle line right there. So this middle line, you're going to align it with the middle of your back neckline, and then I'm going to go stitch. Now I will start from this middle and stitch to one end of the shoulder, and then I will start from the other side to stitch to the other end of the shoulder. Now it's going to be very tricky, so because there is a lot of curve right there, so please do that with care. Now after stitching it, you guys, this is what I have. You can see what the neck looks like. So I'm going to notch the allowance, and then I've done the same thing for the lining. Now I'm going to bring the lining and the actual piece. Make sure that the right sides are facing each other, and I'm going to use my pins to hold it down from this collar to the hem of my jacket. Okay, so you can see I'm trying to use my pins to arrange it in place. And then I'm going to bring my scissors because I feel like this place is too pointy, and I'm going to just trim it out a little. So I've trimmed out one side. I'm going to repeat the same thing to the other side, and then I would continue to pin. So I'll equally pin the down parts, and after that I will go stitch this around using 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm going to start from the middle of the neck, stitch to the other end, and equally do that to the other side. So guys, here is what we have. This is what the inside of the kimono looks like. So you can see this is very beautiful and very easy. So now I'm going to go trim my armhole, which I have done. I've actually done that behind the camera. Now I'm going to bring in my sleeve. This is a basic sleeve with the lining. Okay, I went ahead to cut that behind the camera. Now I'm going to fold in my sleeve into two so that I'll show you guys the length and the wideness of the sleeve. So for the length, I made this of 13 inches here. I'm still going to add up 2 inches band. Okay, so that is going to make it up to 15 inches, and the wideness is 10 plus seam allowance. I have 1 inch seam allowance there, so the wideness is going to be 9. Okay, now this is my band. I'm going to fold in my bands into two because the band is going to be on fold. Okay, so I'm cutting out the two band at once. Now from the totally folded part, I'm going to measure out the height of the band, 2.5 inches. So 2.5 inches, I'm going to use 1/2 inch to join it to the upper sleeve, okay, which is the basic sleeve. And then for the wideness, remember I said I have 10 inches there, so I'm going to cut out length 21 inches because the sleeve was on fold when I measured out 10, which is 20 if it's not on fold. Now after that, I went ahead to cut it out. Now after cutting it out, I'm going to go join my main sleeve with the lining. So I'm going to just stitch up the side seam, okay, and turn it out, top stitch the upper part and fix the sleeve. Okay, the sleeve is going to be on fold like this, and I'm going to stitch like this, okay, and then turn it downwards and stitch up the side seam. And you guys, after I was done, this is the final look of our kimono jackets with a shawl collar. This is very simple. I hope you guys find this tutorial helpful. If you do, guys, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't subscribed to my channel. Turn on post notification so you get notified whenever I upload a new video. Also share this particular tutorial so more people can get to see it. I will see you in my next one. Bye.